Hello 8th grade, today is Tuesday, May 5th, and we are working on factoring, okay? Now what you need to realize is factoring is the reverse process of multiplying. Okay? What we have been working on the past week or so is multiplying either a monomial times a binomial, binomial times binomial, or we did a binomial times a trinomial. Right, now we are doing it, we're working on the reverse of that process, all right? Something that you're going to see a lot in high school, okay? So the first step is to find the greatest common factor of the coefficients, all right? Remember, the coefficients are the number part of the term, all right? Then the second step is to find the greatest variable that is in each term. Right? So I'm going to go through 8 different examples, which are going to be very similar to your homework. Okay, kind of watch the process carefully, and your assignment will be listed on a Google document, but I'm going to go ahead and have you do it on paper. I think it's easier for you to write your exponents, because doing exponents on a Google document is kind of a pain. All right, so you'll do your work on a separate sheet of paper. Make sure it's clear, legible. Your final answer is circled, and then send me a picture either to Classroom or to my email. All right, I'll find it in either spot. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Okay, x to the third plus 2x squared. So this has a coefficient of 2. If you want to put the 1 in front of the x to the third, okay, they do not have anything in common, all right? The only thing they have in common is a 1, all right? We're not really going to show the 1 factor. Remember, 1s tend to be dropped in algebra. All right, so there is not a number that we can factor out, but we can factor out a variable. We have x to the third and x squared. All right, so they both have x's in common. All right, we want the greatest exponent possible. All right, so we are going to factor out x squared. All right. I cannot use x to the third, all right, because the second term is only x squared, all right? So I factor out x squared, then I put parentheses, okay? X squared times what will give me back x to the third power, all right? Well, I need to put an x in here. X squared times x gives me back x to the third. Now I need to do it again. X squared times what will give me back 2x squared. Right? Well, I need to put a 2 in here and close the parentheses. All right, I can always double check it, which is a smart idea. X squared times x, yes, gives me x to the third. X squared times 2, yes, it gives me 2x squared. All right, so this is the correct factoring, okay? Let's look at the next one. Once again, look at the number part first, okay? We have a -3, we have a 6, and we have a -9. The greatest common factor that they have in common is 3. Now, in this case, we want to learn in algebra, you do not want to have a negative on your leading term, all right? In this case, it is t squared. So I'm going to factor out a -3 so that when I put my terms in the parentheses, my t squared is positive. If I just factored out a +3, then I would have a -t squared, and mathematicians do not like that. All right, so we always want this term in the parentheses to be in positive. Okay, so I'm going to pull out a -3. -3 times what gives me -3t squared. So I put a t squared in there. Okay, -3 times what gives me 6t. Okay, I need to put -2t because -3 times a -2t gives me a positive 6t. Then I need to say -3 times what gives me a -9. That is a +3. Okay, so I could only factor out a number, a -3. I could not factor out a t because my last term did not have a variable. Okay, let's look at this one. 6r to the third s minus 6r to the third. Look at your numbers first. They both have a 6, so we are going to factor that out. Okay, my leading term is already positive, all right, so I don't have to worry about factoring out a positive or a negative, so I just pulled out the 6. Now let's look at our variables. This one has r to the third s. This one has r to the third. They both have a common variable of r to the third, so I'm going to factor that out. Now I'm going to do my parentheses. I put an s in here. 6r to the third times s, yes, gives me my first term. Okay, my second term, 6r to the third, I want to make it negative, so I'm going to put a -1 inside my parentheses. So 6r to the third times -1 is -6r to the third. And I am finished factoring. Okay, this next one looks horrible, but it's not so bad. We want to look at our numbers first. So we have a 12, 72, and a -60. Okay, our leading term is positive. All right, so that's good. So each one of these numbers have a common factor of 12. All right, so I'm going to factor a 12 out. Now I'm going to look at my variables. This has an x to the third, an x to the fifth, and an x to the second. All right, so x to the second is the variable that they each have in common.